Hi, I'm Ed Kerr. As I've been planning my content for this video, I've been wondering what's a good visual or image I could use to clearly show you what I want to communicate. I finally realized the perfect image is a spinning plate. You may have seen this at a circus or on TV sometime, where a person gets a plate on the end of a stick and they start spinning the plate. Then they add another stick, another plate, another stick, and another plate until you're left in awe of that person's coordination to keep them all spinning without dropping anything. Kind of like a juggler who throws up one ball and another ball and another ball and somehow manages to keep catching them and trading them from hand to hand without dropping any. Incredible coordination. Sometimes I think keyboard players these days might feel like they're juggling. They might feel like they're spinning plates, doing so much more than just playing songs. They're doing extra things that may be stress causing. They're doing extra things that may be technically challenging for them. I want to encourage you that if it feels like you figure out one element of what you do, then something new comes along that you want to add, and you can feel like you're just solving problems and being challenged by new things you want to incorporate. I want to encourage you that there are ways hardware and software can help you relax as a keyboard player. They can help lift some of that stress you might feel on the platform, hoping things go well. We can spin plates effectively. We can be at peace on the platform as keyboard players. Let's get started. If it wasn't for MIDI, most of what I'm talking about on this video wouldn't even be possible. MIDI is the technology that allows musical instruments and computers to communicate. It's an acronym that stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. Impressive, right? Actually, it's incredible what MIDI has brought to us as musicians. All of this is possible because of connections. To make a connection between your keyboard and your computer, take a USB cable, plug it into the USB port on your keyboard, and take the other end to a USB port on your computer. If your keyboard has MIDI ports that look like this, you'll need a MIDI interface to make this connection. Let's do a quick test to be sure that the MIDI connection via USB is working between the computer and the keyboard. When I press a key on the instrument, I should be able to see activity in the music software on my computer. Watch as I play middle C. You can see that small light come and go as MIDI activity is seen by the computer. So we've proven that the MIDI connection is working. Everything's perfect. Let's keep moving. The first time you use any MIDI keyboard, you'll need to be sure that it's set to send MIDI out via the USB port. Here's how that's done on my CP88. The first thing I do is press Menu. I press Enter to select General. I turn the knob, press Enter to select MIDI settings. Then I press Enter to select MIDI port. And now I choose USB. Since it's off, I turn the knob to set it to on, press Enter one more time, and that's it. Press Menu, and you're all done. There are lots of ways to eliminate stress and technical challenges from your work as a keyboard player. Let's focus on Ableton Live now and some of the options available to you. Ableton Live has been a popular choice of software for churches around the world for many years. It's a great place to record music, arrange music, produce music. For our purposes, I'm going to focus on its great value as a playback tool for tracks, clicks, and guides. Let's jump in. Here's Ableton Live's session view. This is where I do the bulk of my work when I'm using the software. We're going to focus on three particular regions of this window. We'll look at scenes, where you can store your audio files and your MIDI information. We'll look at the master track, where lots of important specific details about each song in your set are stored. And I'll show you what happens in the meters when a song is being played. Here's a look at the scenes area of the session view. You may notice that there's lots of horizontal rows and vertical columns. If you see colored areas in one of those horizontal rows, that means it contains a clip. A clip is an audio file or a MIDI file that can be played back whenever you like. In the master track area, you'll see that there are several columns filled with information. The first column shows you song titles, or the contents of the scene to the left. Another row has 100, 81, and 70. Those are the beats per minute, or the tempo of the song. And the last column on the right shows 44 or 68. Those are the meter of the song. Finally, I want you to see what happens in the audio meters when a song's being played. You'll see what happens in each area of the session view we've talked about. Here goes.
Intro, 2, 3, 4. Intro. Verse 1.
As I move around the session view window now, I'm going to have my cursor highlighted so you can see just what I'm clicking on. If I want to play any of the songs in my playlist over here under the master track window, I can click this blue triangle just to the left of the title, like this.
Intro, 2, 3, 4.
And if I want to stop playback, I just hit the space bar. And if I want to play this click down on the 5th line, I can click that triangle, and it starts. And again, until I hit the space bar. Now that you've seen the basic operation of Ableton Live, I want to relate what you've seen to the premise of this video, the plates we spin. I wonder, how realistic is it that as you and I play our keyboard, that we can reach up, find that little blue triangle by the song we want to play, hit it at just the right moment as we continue playing? I think it's challenging. I know it's challenging. And like that juggler, it's a lot to coordinate. But fortunately, there are hardware solutions that can make it attainable, possible, and peaceful, thank goodness. So because this concept is so important, I want to call this segment Controlling Ableton Live, not just working with it. Controlling it is going to be a key to eliminate some of the stress and the coordination challenges and the demands of doing all this stuff on the spot in the service. Let's look at what some of those options are. Enter the Korg Nano Kontrol 2. This device was introduced several years ago and has proven to be a fantastic partner for Ableton Live. All of these buttons and knobs and faders that you see on it can be programmed to execute various functions in Ableton Live. Here's how I've programmed the buttons on my Nano. This bottom row of buttons controls the start of tracks. The next row up controls the start of clicks. And here's a clever one. This button controls stop of clicks or tracks. Pretty clever, right? Now we'll look at how to map buttons on your Nano to start click tracks or songs in Ableton Live. We'll be mapping a button on the Nano to the song or scene we want to start. To begin the process, you can do one of several things. You can choose Edit MIDI Map from the Options menu, or you could type Command M. And finally, you could click the blue MIDI button at the top of the window. Once you take this action, your full live window will turn blue. In the master track, highlight one of the songs or scenes you want to assign to a button. I'm going to choose the second song in our list. Now click the button on your Nano you want to use to start the scene. I'll use button number 1 on the bottom here. I click that button, and a set of numbers appears over the scene or song. One more assignment I want to make is mapping my stop button on the Nano to the stop button in Ableton. To do this, I'll click on the stop button in Ableton, and then I'll click the stop button on the Nano. And as you see, a number appeared over the stop button. Now you need to end the mapping process. You can use one of the 3 options I showed you earlier to turn mapping off. You can select Edit MIDI Map from the Options menu. You can type Command M, or you can click the MIDI Map button. And that's it. That's how you map buttons on your Nano to Ableton Live. For years, along with Ableton Live, MainStage has been a huge part of what I do as a keyboard player. But it wasn't always that way, I'll tell you. For a long time, I felt like this person, just wondering how can it work so well in one service, then the next week when I open my computer and open MainStage, things just don't work. My computer doesn't recognize the sustain pedal. It's so frustrating, but it's gotten a lot better. And I'm glad I'm no longer like this person who's just screaming in frustration, mind blown. Gosh, I'm so grateful that friends who I asked again and again, how was it that you set up my sustain pedal? Now I know how to do it, and I'm going to show you and hopefully take away some of the frustrations you may have felt trying to use MainStage, because it's a fantastic tool, and there's a very good reason why so many churches around the world use MainStage weekly. There are 3 main views available in MainStage. There's the layout view, the edit view, and the perform view. We'll spend a good bit of time working in the layout view as we make connections between our piano keyboard and our sustain pedal with MainStage. An important part of our work in Ableton Live was mapping buttons on our Nano to parts of Live's session view. That way we can start and stop songs as desired. In MainStage, that process of connecting MIDI devices to the software is called assign. We need to assign our piano keyboard and our sustain pedal to the software. It's in the layout view that we assign MIDI devices to MainStage. We just need to focus on a few parts of it for this work. We'll be using the assign button a lot. We'll be able to see MIDI activity occurring in the MIDI in display. And we'll find our keyboard and sustain pedal at the bottom of this window to do the work. There's a lot going on in this window for sure, but the main thing I want you to be able to focus on is the assign button and the MIDI in display. So I've given you a larger layout here of both so you can see what's happening with them. For example, you'll easily see the assign button light up, and you'll easily see that there's MIDI activity happening in that display at the bottom. First, let's assign our MIDI keyboard to MainStage. The first step is to click the image of the device you want to assign. You'll see the keyboard at the bottom of the screen. When I click on it, it becomes surrounded with this blue shape. The next step, click the assign button. And now I go to the device and play a note. And you'll see that just below the assign button, the name changed, and it recognized that the CP88 is attached. Next step, and last step, click the assign button again, and you're done. Have you ever played a keyboard where the sustain pedal wasn't hooked up properly? What a nightmare that can be. It's such a helpless feeling. Let's avoid that feeling and be sure that we assign our sustain pedal to MainStage. First step, click the image of the device you want to assign. Down at the bottom to the right of the keyboard, you'll see the sustain pedal. Click that. Next step, click the assign button. Done. Next step, press the sustain pedal. You'll see the name of the CP88 just below the assign button now, so MainStage recognizes the pedal. Last step, click the assign button again and you're done. Whew, no more sustain pedals that don't work, right? I'm going to make a change of direction now. I'm going to play a little bit. Imagine that. We've talked a lot about technology, about hardware, software, how to make it work together effectively. But I just wanted to bring a simple reminder to us that we do this work because our ultimate goal is to be able to minister freely at our keyboard when we have opportunity. You know, I took a risk just now. I let that example go a little longer than I might have, but I did it intentionally. I did it because I think lots of us have a hard time slowing down. Lots of us are sort of anxious to move to the next thing, and we don't rest a lot. Interesting that Scripture says we can be still and know that God is God. I want to take some time personally to relax more, to consider who He is more, and not be so anxious about what I have to do for Him, but instead think of what I get to do for Him because He loves me. It's true for you as well. No matter how hard you work, no matter how much you attain, no matter how incredible your keyboard skills are, the bottom line is you are loved. If you're struggling to play, if you're a master of all that you do, you are loved. That's the most important thing I could share with you today. Before we go any further working with MainStage, I wanted to point out that so far, you haven't just been seeing MainStage windows. You've been seeing a product called Sunday Keys. It was developed by a website called SundaySounds.com, and it's absolutely something you should check out. As you see here, Sunday Keys is available in a lot of formats. It's a standalone app for your iPad and your Mac. It's available in MainStage format, which is what you're seeing me use today. And it's also available in Ableton Live format. To give you an idea what the folks at SundaySounds.com have developed in Sunday Keys, I wanted you to see this window from the program. Over to the right side, you'll see lots of green and blue rectangles. Each of those rectangles represents an audio or a MIDI effect. That's a lot of effects. And that's part of the reason that sound that I played for you a few months ago sounds so rich and rhythmically interesting and harmonically interesting. Take a moment sometime to visit SundaySounds.com. Learn about Sunday Keys. There's not a lot of setup left for us with MainStage. I want to be sure all these buttons are set up to choose the key for the tonic pad player to use. I want to have this fader move the volume up and down for that pad. And I also want to use this button to start and stop the pad. First, I'll choose the button to set the key of G for the tonic pad player. Select it there, click Assign, and choose G on the Nano. I also needed to set the key of B flat for the tonic player. Select it there, head up to Assign, choose B flat, turn off Assign. Go to the key of E flat for the player, click Assign, choose E flat. Two more things. The Start Stop button for the pad player is here. Choose Assign and click this button. Last one. This is volume for the tonic pad player. It's selected here. Choose Assign and now move that fader, and that did it. Okay, friends, we've talked a lot about spinning plates. All the things we keyboard players might be doing on the platform during a worship service. So I thought, besides just talking about setting this stuff up to use, I would actually use it. What a concept. So in this window, you'll see everything that's going to be part of what I'm about to play. I'm just going to create something, and let's just sort of demonstrate what it is I'm going to be using. You've got the Nano here, obviously. You're seeing it twice. I want you to see the proximity of it from the keyboard, because I'm going to be reaching as I play and triggering stuff up here. So you can see in the bottom right, where a MainStage perform view is seen, you'll see the keys change. That's what the pad player is going to use. So I'm just sort of showing you some different things. I'm going to be playing in the key of E, so I'll go ahead and pick that. In the bottom left, you can see the Ableton Live Master window. And if I use either of these rows, as we programmed earlier, for instance, if I want to click to start for the first song, there it goes, and I can stop it here on the Nano. If I want, this song happens to be in 6/8, I'm going to use that in a moment. I can click that button. And if I want a track to start,
intro, 2, 3, 4.
I can push something on this lower row. Okay, that's enough of the info about what I'm going to be doing. I also wanted to show you that on the Nano, you can see I've got a fader here that is controlling the pad volume. There's the pad, and I can make it come and go. You can see that fader moving in the MainStage window just by that meter that's showing activity. And as we've already talked about, I can push the pad button again and stop it from playing. Okay, so again, piano's there, pads starting and stopping from there, and the Nano is going to be used for me to control Ableton. And even as I described that, that's a lot of plates. That's a lot I'm going to be doing. But I just want to demonstrate that it is practical and possible if things are set up intuitively and if things are easily reached. Ergonomically, you want to be sure that your Nano isn't like somewhere awkwardly out to your left or right or too far out front. You want to be able to play and easily reach the device that you want to get something from, okay? So here we go. Again, the key of E. No real tempo here. I'm thinking, well, at some point, I want to bring the pad in. I know it'll take a moment to swell in. Here comes the click. Didn't quite hit it hard enough. Now I'm going to just keep going here and make this a real moment. So I didn't start the click quite when I wanted to. The music I was playing before the click started was in what we call a rubato feel. It didn't have a definite tick, sort of a strict tempo going on. That's the feel I wanted, because when the click started, I want there to be a sense of, oh, now there's a lilt, now there's a definite meter going on. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to play in the key of E. Now here comes the pad. Now here, at the end of this phrase, I'm going to pause. And now I can do the meter. I guess moving my body is part of it, huh? If you recognize that I'm playing the chords from Great Are You, Lord. Love that song. And let's say I'm winding down now. I can stop the click. And I can retard. So it's ended now. And at the right moment, I can choose to fade the pad. So that's that. That's an example of how this works. There's a lot to think about, and the more you do it, for instance, when I had to sort of redo the moment when the tempos started, that's all stuff you just get used to. And you also get used to reaching for something. You get used to making sure you have the right key chosen. So I hope that's a good illustration for you that this stuff isn't just something we set up and then forget about. We can use it creatively, dynamically in each of our services and create some beautiful moods. If our collection of spinning plates is going to include software like Ableton Live and MainStage, there's some audio considerations we have to deal with. Somehow, the sounds produced by our software have to get to our sound system. Let's explore some of the ways that works. If we opt to send our tracks out stereo, we'll need 2 channels out from Ableton Live. If we want to separate the guide track and the click track, we need 2 more channels. So that's 4 output channels from Ableton Live: stereo tracks, guide, and click. Ideally, MainStage will be sent out stereo as well, so the sonic richness of all those sounds we're using is heard by the congregation. Now, you may think that in the room, in the sanctuary, people won't necessarily notice stereo, and that may be true. But when you're live streaming, it definitely makes a difference. We've started live streaming stereo keys and tracks from my keyboard setup, and it's made a definite difference in the audio experience online. Considering how many audio outputs we're sending from our computer, here's the reality. We need an audio interface. An audio interface connects to a USB port on your computer, and it sends out pro quality sound, crucial for what we're doing here. I want to remind you, never use your headphone jack to send audio to your sound system. It's simply not designed for quality audio. There are tons of great audio interfaces on the market today. You want to find out which one works for you? Ask around, ask your friends, ask me, ask your sound person, ask other keyboard players in your area. Check with your local music store and online retailer. I've used the Steinberg series from Yamaha and found great success with those. I've also used the Scarlett series from Focusrite. In fact, that's what I'm using for this video. But wait, lots of Yamaha keyboards work as an audio interface. They actually contain the interface within the keyboard. I send MainStage out of my CP88 and it works flawlessly. So whatever model of Yamaha keyboard you have, do some research. You may, in fact, already have an audio interface. Here's a quick guide to how to set audio output for Ableton Live and for MainStage. In Live, go to the Settings option under Live menu, or you can type Command, comma. Once you reach that window, choose the Audio tab on the left. Then you're going to want to choose an audio output device from the available options that show when you click. I've chosen the Scarlett interface in this case. Here you can see my CP88. As I mentioned, my CP has an audio interface built in. Your keyboard might also have that if it's a recent Yamaha board. Check it out. In my case, I'm sending out my Ableton tracks stereo, so I want to click that button so it turns orange like you see. For my click and my guide, I'm sending those out mono so they each have their own channel, and you can see that I've enabled that button so it's orange. Here's a look at setting audio output in MainStage. From the MainStage menu, you can choose Settings, or you can type Command, comma. Once that window opens, choose the Audio tab from the top, and you'll be presented with an option to choose an audio output device. I'd currently chosen the Scarlett, and here's the CP that you can see in my option list. Once you're spinning plates like I am with your Nano, MainStage, and Ableton Live, you're going to discover what I discovered, that we need a snake. We need a snake to get all these outputs from our interfaces to our house sound system. So here's what I came up with. I built a little desk that goes under my keyboard at church. It sits on my keyboard stand. It's got lots of holes and little conduits and channels for cables to run, so that instead of there being a lot of clutter on the stage from all these mic lines that are having to run, I use my snake. And you can see here that there's a hole from underneath the keyboard stand that lets the snake cables come in. And here I've got 2 stereo direct boxes and my Scarlett interface sitting there. So as you develop your keyboard setup, consider something like this to organize your equipment. As I wrap things up here, I want to read a scripture to you out of Matthew 15. Large crowds came to him, including those who were paralyzed, blind, injured, and unable to speak, and many others. And they laid them at his feet, and he healed them. So the crowd was amazed when they saw those who had been unable to speak talking, and the paralyzed cured, and the injured walking, and the blind seeing. And they praised the God of Israel. Matthew 15, verses 30 and 31. As I was preparing for this video, I read that scripture and was so impressed with the way people reacted to what they saw. They saw people who were blind seeing. They saw people who were lame walking. They were amazed at transformation. In this video, I've talked a lot about spinning plates, about things that might make us kind of anxious on the platform, and technology that might frustrate us at times, like a sustain pedal that won't work. But as we grow confident on the platform, as we develop a system with our software and our instruments that's steady and has any problems worked out, people will be amazed. It might not be something that someone after a service points out, oh man, I can really tell you're more confident, but there's something different somehow. So I want to encourage you that as you continue to grow and perhaps give some of your frustrations up to the Lord, that you'll see him change you. You'll see, wow, software worked today, or the tracks did what they should have today. It's possible. God's with you. And I hope you'll continue, develop, and grow. Thanks for watching.